Y'all, the internet has been an absolute chaos lately, and if you've been anywhere near social media, you already know what we're talking about. Just when people thought the drama surrounding Jennifer Hudson and Common couldn't get any louder, a familiar voice jumped into the conversation and completely changed the temperature. Jaguar Wright didn't just walk into this situation, she kicked the door wide open. Now, before we go any further, let's make something very clear. What you're about to hear is centered around online rumors, public reactions, and alleged claims that have been circulating across social platforms. None of this is confirmed, and it's important to approach the situation with balance. But with that said, let's talk about why the internet has been losing its mind. It all started quietly. No headlines, no official statements, just whispers. Fan pages began noticing that Jennifer Hudson hadn't been as visible as usual. Fewer public appearances, outfit choices being overanalyzed, camera angles suddenly becoming conspiracy material. It started with simple questions. Is she okay? She's stepping back from the spotlight? Is she hiding something? And just like that, the rumor mill started turning. Late-night Twitter threads started popping up. Videos slowed down her interviews frame by frame. People circled outfits. People zoomed into background details. They compared timelines. They compared dates. They compared likes, follows, unfollows, and Instagram activity. The internet did what the internet does best: speculate. The more Jennifer stayed quiet, the louder the voices got. And to be fair, silence in the celebrity world often becomes its own form of communication. People don't see silence as privacy. They see it as mystery. They see it as suspense. They see it as a hidden message waiting to be decoded. Then, finally, Jennifer Hudson spoke, but not in the way people expected. She didn't go live. She didn't rant. She didn't throw shade. She didn't clap back. She didn't expose anyone. She was calm. She was grounded. She was graceful. She spoke about emotions. She spoke about growth. She spoke about personal journeys. She spoke about how relationships are real, complex, and meaningful even when they don't last forever. And when it came to the rumors, she didn't entertain chaos. She delivered one simple message that hit hard across the internet: my body, my choices, my life. Those words landed differently. Fans flooded comment sections with praise. People called her powerful, brave, inspiring, poised. Many believed she had officially shut down the noise and reclaimed her narrative. For a moment, things felt peaceful. But peace doesn't last long on the internet, because just hours later, the volume went back up. Just when people thought the conversation was cooling down, a familiar name entered the picture and flipped everything upside down: Jaguar Wright. If you know anything about Jaguar, you already know she's not someone who tiptoes into a situation. She doesn't whisper. She doesn't ease into conversations. She dives in headfirst. She went live. And within minutes, the energy changed completely. On that live stream, Jaguar made it very clear that she believed the full story wasn't being told. She suggested that what the public was seeing was only a surface-level version of something much deeper. She didn't present official documents. She didn't show full evidence. But she spoke with confidence, and that alone was enough to send shockwaves across social media. Her message wasn't just about the rumors themselves. It was about patterns, about warnings, about things happening behind closed doors that fans would never normally see. She implied that certain conversations had taken place long before the internet ever started speculating. She suggested that people close to the situation already saw warning signs that fans were only now beginning to notice. And when she mentioned Common, the temperature shifted again. Jaguar didn't directly confirm anything as fact. Instead, she spoke in the language of implication, suggestion, and reflection, the same kind of language that online culture thrives on. She talked about emotional cycles. She talked about relationship patterns. She talked about expectations versus reality. That was all it took. Within hours, comment sections were flooded. Timelines were updated. Past relationships were being revisited by fans who felt like they were suddenly seeing things through a new lens. Two sides of the internet were formed overnight. One side saying, she's just telling her truth. The other side saying, this is messy and unnecessary. There was no middle ground. Fan bases clashed. Influencer accounts picked sides. Reaction videos started stacking up by the hour. Everyone had a hot take, and nobody wanted to be last to post. But Jaguar didn't slow down, not even for a second. She went live again. This time, she hinted that she had what she called receipts. Not full confirmations, not official statements, just enough mystery to keep the internet leaning forward. She mentioned messages. She hinted at screenshots. She referenced voice notes. But she never fully released them. And that made everything more intense, because mystery sells a blurry image. A cut-off sentence, a quick flash of a phone screen, a paused frame, a half-visible timestamp. That's all the internet needs. Online detectives started comparing timestamps with Jennifer's activity. They matched story uploads, they lined up silence gaps. They ran with timelines like investigative journalists on a deadline. Was it coincidence? Was it storytelling? Was it performance? No one actually knew, but everyone had an opinion. Jennifer, she stayed silent. No lives, no tweets, no interviews, no posts. That silence began to feel louder than everything else. At this point, the internet wasn't just talking about the rumors anymore. They were talking about Jennifer's silence. Because in a world where celebrities often respond instantly, silence feels loud. It feels intentional, feels like a message of its own. Jennifer didn't go on live. She didn't subtweet. She didn't post cryptic captions. She didn't like shady comments. She simply disappeared from the conversation. And that disappearance created two powerful narratives online. One side saw her silence as strength. People began saying things like, she's protecting her peace. She doesn't owe the internet an explanation. She's choosing dignity over drama. Fans flooded social media with support posts, praising her for not giving chaos attention. To them, her silence wasn't weakness. It was power. It was strategy. It was healing. But the other side of the internet, they saw silence as a question mark. They asked, why won't she speak? What is she protecting? What is she afraid to confirm or deny? And just like that, silence turned into speculation. The quieter she stayed, the louder. The theories became, suddenly, Jennifer was no longer just a person in a rumor. She was a symbol. People began projecting their own experiences onto her. Women shared stories of being misunderstood publicly, of choosing peace instead of defending themselves, of learning that not everything deserves a response. Her silence started to inspire people. But it also confused people, because silence in the world of viral culture is dangerous. It allows stories to grow without correction. It lets speculation evolve into truth in the minds of viewers. It creates space for people like Jaguar to dominate the narrative. And Jaguar was not slowing down. She started hinting that there was more to come. Not details, not proof. Just the suggestion that something bigger was waiting behind the curtain. That suggestion was enough to make hashtags trend. People weren't just talking anymore. They were taking sides. Protect Jennifer started appearing in posts. Expose the Truth appeared in others. Reddit threads grew into essay-length breakdowns. Old interviews were clipped and reanalyzed. Body language experts popped up on TikTok overnight. The situation had stopped being about facts. It became about belief. And that's when everything got even more complicated. Because when belief takes over, reality gets blurred. In part 4, we're going to explore how the internet started rewriting the story in real time. and how speculation turned into a full-blown cultural moment. By the time this situation hit its peak, it wasn't really about Jennifer, Common, or even Jaguar anymore. The internet itself became the main character. Every post turned into evidence. Every silence turned into a theory. Every old interview turned into a clue. People weren't just watching the story unfold, they were actively writing it. TikTok became ground zero for speculation. Videos with millions of views broke down facial expressions, pauses in interviews, and timeline coincidences. Creators started treating the situation like a mystery series. Twitter turned into a courtroom, one side presenting arguments, the other side presenting exhibits. And in the middle of all of it sat one uncomfortable truth. No one actually knew what was real, but that didn't slow the conversation at all. In fact, the uncertainty made it bigger. When things aren't confirmed, imagination fills in the gaps. That's the culture of virality. Jaguar continued appearing online, speaking in cryptic language, not providing full evidence but keeping the suspense alive. And with every appearance, the story evolved not necessarily with new facts, but with new interpretations. Jennifer's quiet presence became symbolic. To some, she represented strength. To others, mystery. Common's role became more abstract. Some saw him as misunderstood. Some saw him as part of a larger pattern. But the truth remained unknown. And yet, the narrative felt real to people because emotion had already taken over. The situation started reflecting bigger conversations in culture. Privacy versus public curiosity. Boundaries versus transparency. Healing versus performance. Silence versus self-defense. That's when people realized this wasn't just celebrity gossip anymore. It became a conversation about how the internet treats real people, how quickly stories turn into storylines, how fast humans turn into headlines. And that's when everything took another turn. Because once the culture shifts, the audience doesn't just watch the drama. When a situation like this explodes online, it isn't just about the people involved. It's about psychology. Humans are naturally wired to seek meaning, patterns, and hidden truths. When something feels incomplete, the brain tries to finish the story on its own. That's why silence feels uncomfortable. That's why unanswered questions feel louder than answers. This is what made this situation explode the way it did. There was mystery. There were pauses. There were unanswered questions. There were emotional reactions. That combination is the perfect recipe for virality. People weren't just watching this unfold, they were emotionally participating. They were projecting their own experiences onto the story. Some saw Jennifer and thought about times they stayed silent. Some saw Jaguar and thought about whistleblowers. Some looked at Common and reflected on their own relationship experiences. The story transformed. Stopped being about three individuals. It became a mirror. That's how the internet works now. People don't just follow stories, they live inside them. That's also why creators rush to make content. Reaction videos, breakdowns, theories, predictions. The algorithm favors emotion. The algorithm favors suspense. The algorithm favors uncertainty. And this situation hit all three. Meanwhile, the individuals at the center of it all were barely speaking. That made the emotional imbalance even stronger. One person speaking, one person silent, and millions of people in the middle trying to interpret the silence. That's when the story reached its most dangerous stage. Because when audiences feel emotionally connected, logic often disappears. The internet no longer wanted facts. It wanted resolution. It wanted answers. It wanted closure. But closure was nowhere to be found. And when closure doesn't come from the source, it gets invented by the audience. That's exactly what started happening next. At a certain point, something dangerous happens online. Speculation starts feeling real. When the same ideas are Repeated enough times, across enough platforms, they slowly begin to feel like facts to the audience, even when there has been no confirmation. That's exactly what started happening here. Posts weren't saying maybe anymore. They were saying everyone knows. It's obvious that we all saw language shifted. And when language shifts, perception follows. People started referencing rumors as if they were documented history. Clips started circulating without context. Screenshots were reposted without timestamps. Old interviews were edited to fit new narratives. The story began rewriting itself in real time. Jennifer's silence started being interpreted in extreme ways. To some, it was proof of grace. To others, it felt like confirmation of hidden pain. Common's quiet presence became a blank canvas. People filled it with theories. Jaguar's words became myth-like online. Quoted, reposted, reimagined. But there was a major problem. There were no verified facts driving the conversation, just emotion. And emotion can be louder than truth. This is how internet legends are born. Not through proof, but through repetition. Once something has been heard enough times, it becomes familiar. Once it becomes familiar, it feels real. And once it feels real, people stop asking questions. They start believing. Belief is powerful. That's when people started choosing sides not based on evidence, but based on emotion. Supporters, critics, defenders, accusers, everyone felt justified. But no one actually had the full picture. The scariest part. No one felt like they needed the full picture anymore. The story had become a feeling. And feelings don't require proof to exist. At this stage, it's worth stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. In the age of social media, silence is no longer just the absence of words. It's a statement. Mystery is no longer simply a personal choice. It's a tool, an online chaos. Well, it's now a form of entertainment. Celebrities, influencers, and public figures have learned that timing and control over what they reveal can create narratives far more powerful than immediate explanations ever could. Jennifer's silence became one of the most compelling examples of this. By not responding to every rumor, she allowed space for interpretation, speculation, and emotional investment. People weren't just watching her, they were participating. In her story, Jaguar, on the other hand, demonstrated a contrasting approach. She became the instigator, the storyteller, the person who set the internet ablaze. Live streams, cryptic hints, and partial receipts fueled discussion, curiosity, and controversy. Her actions highlighted a fundamental truth of modern online culture: controversy is content. Together, these contrasting approaches created a dynamic tension that the internet thrives on. One side is calm, quiet, deliberate. The other is loud, provocative, relentless. And the audience? They are the amplifiers. They decide which narrative gets traction, which gets ignored, and which becomes legend. It's also important to note the role of platform algorithms in all of this. Social media platforms reward engagement, likes, shares, comments, views. Content that evokes strong emotions, curiosity, or outrage is naturally prioritized. That's why this story didn't just trend. It dominated feeds, comment sections, and trending pages across multiple platforms. Now, the real lesson here isn't about Jennifer, Common, or Jaguar specifically. It's about understanding how the modern internet ecosystem works. Silence can be a powerful message. Partial information spreads faster than verified facts. Emotion often outweighs logic in online narratives. Audiences don't just consume content, they participate in it. Once a story reaches a certain level of virality, it no longer stays contained to a single social platform. It spreads like ripples in water, touching fans, media outlets, and wider cultural discussions. In this situation, fan communities became hyper-engaged. Threads on Reddit dissected every move. TikTok creators posted detailed breakdowns. And Twitter users acted as amateur investigators, analyzing posts, stories, and timelines. People weren't just speculating, they were creating evidence, connecting dots, and building narratives from fragments of information. Media outlets followed the frenzy, amplifying discussions with headlines designed to capture attention, even when stories contained little verified information. The combination of celebrity names, online engagement, and curiosity created clicks, shares, and endless commentary. And that's where the cycle intensifies. Fans speculate, gives content. Creators amplify, gives media reports, gives more fans engage. It's a self-reinforcing loop, and once it starts, it's almost impossible to pause. Every minor post, every subtle comment, every deleted story can be interpreted as a clue, a hint, or confirmation. Importantly, this process doesn't just affect public perception of the people involved. It also shapes conversations about relationships, personal boundaries, privacy, and trust. Online, audiences begin to weigh in on the emotional lives of others, sometimes responsibly, sometimes with harmful assumptions. For Jennifer, Common, and Jaguar, this meant that every decision, every silence, and every statement was magnified, dissected, and debated by millions. The story itself became a social experiment in modern celebrity culture. How information, or the lack of it, spreads, and how people respond emotionally to what they perceive as truth. By this stage, it's clear. The drama isn't just a story. It's a reflection of online society itself. At the heart of modern online drama lies a single concept: the receipt. Receipts can be screenshots, text messages, voice notes, social media posts, or any fragment of information that appears to validate a claim. But here's the key: partial or unclear receipts can be even more powerful than full proof. In this story, Jaguar hinted at having receipts, texts, screenshots, even voice notes. She never revealed them fully, but she flashed them briefly. Those tiny glimpses were enough to send the internet into overdrive. Why? Because the human brain craves closure. Seeing even a hint triggers curiosity and speculation. Fans instantly started cross-referencing these glimpses with known timelines, Instagram activity, and previous interviews. TikTok detectives and Twitter sleuths worked tirelessly to match small details, creating intricate theories that spread faster than any confirmed evidence ever could. This is where perception becomes reality. Even without full proof, the mere suggestion of evidence can elevate a rumor to viral status, divide fan communities into sides, create a sense of urgency around the story, turn social media feeds into mini investigative platforms. The combination of mystery, partial information, and emotional investment makes these moments addictive. Audiences feel involved. They feel like insiders. They feel like they are part of the unfolding narrative. But there's another layer to consider: ethics and responsibility. When partial claims are presented as hints of truth, they can influence opinions, shape reputations, and impact lives even when nothing is confirmed. Speed and scale of online sharing often outpace the reality of the situation. And yet, this is the exact dynamic that fuels modern celebrity drama. Every pause, every hint, every unspoken word keeps the conversation alive. Every subtle gesture can become a headline, a clip, or a viral post. By this point, the story no longer belonged to just the people involved. It belonged to the audience. Online communities don't just react to stories anymore, they reshape them. Every comment becomes a building block. Every theory becomes a possible plot line. Every viral post becomes a chapter in a story that never stops evolving. This is exactly what happened here. People didn't wait for confirmed details. They created their own versions of events. They wrote threads, made videos, they built timelines. In many ways, the public became co-authors. And once that happens, reality and storytelling start to blend. Because audiences don't just want to know what happened, they want to feel like they solved something. They want to feel like they uncovered something. They want to feel like they were ahead of the truth. This desire fuels engagement. It fuels debates. It fuels division. But it also fuels connection. Strangers bonded over shared theories. Communities formed around shared perspectives. People felt seen in their reactions. And that's the paradox of internet drama. It can be chaotic, but it creates community. It can be messy, but it creates belonging. The danger comes when emotional investment starts to outweigh critical thinking. That's when rumors turn into facts in people's minds. That's when silence turns into proof. That's when partial hints turn into evidence. At this stage, even if the real truth were revealed, it wouldn't matter to some people, because the emotional story has already been written in their minds. Every viral story follows a pattern. Begins with curiosity. It builds through mystery, explodes through emotion, and eventually reaches a breaking point. This is the stage where the internet becomes tired. Not because the story isn't interesting, but because the audience has exhausted every possible angle. Every theory has been explored. Every clip has been analyzed. Every screenshot has been reposted. At some point, there is nothing left to dissect, and that's dangerous. Because when there are no new facts, the story either dies or something extreme happens. In situations like this, the breaking point usually falls into one of three paths. A real statement finally appears. A major leak is claimed, the internet moves on to the next story. But before any of that happens, there's always a quiet moment, a pause, a breath before the shift. This is the stage where people start asking different questions. Not what happened, but why do we care so much? That's when reflection begins to creep in. People start noticing how much time they've spent analyzing strangers' lives. They begin to see how emotion pulled them into a narrative that may not have been real at all. And slowly, the tone changes. Eventually, even the loudest online storms begin to quiet down. The hashtags slow. The trending topics shift. News stories take center stage. And slowly, the noise fades. It's not because the story was solved, but because the internet moved on. This is the most fascinating stage of TY. If they're in the days of TY, it's divided backtade, as if they're bad or it's conwide bowed. Like, look at this. And we all know. Like, look at this. And we all know I've been exploring that. I've been exploring that path. Not because the story was solved, but because the internet moved. Any viral situation. When the cameras stop rolling, when the comment sections slow down, when the crowd gets quieter, what remains is the silence. But this time, it feels different. Earlier, silence felt mysterious. It felt confusing. It felt suspicious. Now, it feels calm. And calm brings clarity. People start to see the situation less as entertainment and more as something real that involved real people. They start noticing how intense the reactions were, how fast judgments were made, how little verified information was ever truly involved. It becomes less about drama and more about perspective. Jennifer's silence, once seen as suspicious by some, starts to look like wisdom. Jaguar's voices, once seen as explosive, start to feel more complicated. Common's presence, once seen as symbolic, starts to fade into the background. The story doesn't disappear, it just becomes quieter. And in that quiet, something important happens. Reflection. The internet has a strange memory. Some moments disappear overnight. Others linger for years. A few become permanent pieces of culture. What determines which story fades and which one stays? Emotion? The stories that stay aren't always the ones with the most facts. They're the ones that made people feel something. Curiosity, shock, anger, empathy, connection. This situation had all of that. Even as the noise faded, traces remained. Old TikToks saved in folders, Twitter threads, bookmarked, Reddit posts, archived. People don't always forget. They just stop talking out loud. And that's where the power of digital memory lives. It's a story. Can be quiet without being gone. Jennifer's name would still be mentioned in comments months later. Common's interviews would still be analyzed. Jaguar's words would still be quoted, not with the same intensity, but with quiet curiosity. That's how internet legends live, not loudly, but persistently. It's easy to forget that behind every trending topic, every viral clip, and every heated comment, there are real people with real lives. Jennifer Common and Jaguar, like anyone else, are not just characters in a story. They are humans experiencing emotions, navigating relationships, and making choices in private while the world watches. For Jennifer, every public whisper, every rumor, every pause is amplified 1,000 times. Every decision is scrutinized. Every gesture is analyzed. And yet, she maintains her dignity, her privacy, and her peace. A lesson in resilience in the middle of chaos. For common patterns are interpreted, stories are projected, and his personal life becomes an open case study. His actions, intentions, and relationships are debated publicly, even if the full context is never revealed. For Jaguar, her role in the narrative brings both attention and criticism. While some see her as exposing truths, others perceive controversy. But either way, her actions demonstrate the power of storytelling in the digital age. And the lesson for all of us: these stories are a reminder of how fragile privacy can be, how strong the public gaze is, and how the internet shapes narratives far beyond anyone's control. The human side is often overlooked in the chaos, but it is the most important part. Because real emotions, real choices, and real consequences are what make these stories resonate. By now, it's clear that viral stories are more than entertainment. They are lessons in human behavior, digital culture, and online responsibility. First, think before you share. Every comment, every repost, every thread contributes to a larger narrative, whether you mean to or not. Words have power, especially in online spaces where millions can see them instantly. Second, question the sources. Partial information, hints, and receipts can easily be misinterpreted or taken out of context. Just because something is trending doesn't make it true. Third, empathy matters. Real people live behind every screen name. Stories that seem entertaining can have real consequences on someone's life, mental health, and personal relationships. Fourth, pause before judging. The internet moves fast, but understanding, patience, and critical thinking slow the narrative down in the right way. Not everything you see online is complete or accurate. Finally, learn from silence. Silence is not always weakness. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's healing. Respecting that silence can be as powerful as celebrating the loudest voices. When audiences engage responsibly, they don't just observe stories, they become part of a healthier, more thoughtful conversation. Viral celebrity stories aren't just gossip, they're reflections of society. They reveal our values, our obsessions, and our collective behavior online. First, these stories highlight our fascination with personal lives. We are drawn to relationships, conflicts, and secrets because they feel relatable, exciting, or emotionally charged. They provide a safe space to explore emotions without direct involvement. Second, they show how social media shapes narrative power. Unlike traditional media, the audience now plays a role in storytelling. Tweets, TikToks, and comment threads collectively decide which story gains traction, which angles dominate, and which voices are amplified. Third, viral moments reveal patterns in judgment and empathy. People rush to interpret silence, speculate on intentions, and assign motives, often without full context. This reflects both our desire to make sense of uncertainty and our tendency to project personal biases onto public figures. Fourth, these situations show the influence of emotion over facts. Rumors, hints, and partial evidence often generate more engagement than verified truths, emphasizing how much emotion drives online attention. Finally, celebrity drama acts as a mirror for broader social discussions. Conversations about privacy, personal boundaries, respect, mental health. and emotional resilience emerge, often sparking debates that extend far beyond the initial story. The way viral stories spread today is not random. Social media platforms and their algorithms play a central role in deciding what millions of people see and how fast. Algorithms are designed to prioritize engagement. Posts that spark emotion, outrage, curiosity, or excitement are boosted. The more people react, comment, share, or watch, the more visibility a post gets. That's why stories like this don't just trend, they dominate feeds, creating a feedback loop where interest generates more exposure, and more exposure generates more interest. Platforms also encourage fragmentation of content. A single story can be repackaged across TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and more, each time gaining new context and interpretations. Fans dissect clips, analyze text overlays, and generate theories, all of which feed the algorithm and extend the life of the story. This creates a situation where virality can outpace facts. Once an idea reaches a certain critical mass, the audience begins treating it as truth, regardless of verification. Partial hints, speculative comments, or even rumors can gain enormous influence simply because the algorithm amplifies attention. Understanding the role of algorithms helps explain why some stories explode overnight while others barely make a ripple. It's not always the strength of the narrative sometimes. It's the way the audience engages with it that determines reach. For celebrities, even rumors or allegations can shape public perception, influence career opportunities, and affect personal well-being. Every statement, every pause, and every social media post is amplified, analyzed, and often misinterpreted. What might have been a private moment can become a global conversation overnight. For the audience, viral stories become part of online culture. They spark communities, trends, debates, and even memes. While these communities can be fun and engaging, they also carry risks: overinvestment, toxicity, and the spread of misinformation. The lasting effect is twofold: on individuals' emotional strain, constant scrutiny, and pressure to respond or clarify can be immense. Celebrities may experience stress, anxiety, or a sense of lost privacy. On communities, viral moments shape how online audiences behave. They teach people how to analyze, speculate, engage with content. But sometimes this can normalize jumping to conclusions or treating rumors as facts. The key takeaway is that viral events are never isolated. They ripple across personal lives, media narratives, and internet culture for months, sometimes years.